Well, clearly interesting developments at ESCOM with that appointment of the interim CEO. But right now, we're going across to unpack the fifth highest revenue source, fuel levies, a bone of contention and always a subject of discussion. We're going now to the head of strategic engagement and compliance at Tex Consulting SA, Jashwin Baijoo. Jashwin, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and good morning to the listeners.
Yes, wonderful that you're able to join us. And obviously, a lot of talking points as far as the budget speech is concerned. But we want to focus this morning on the controversial fuel levies. It's always been a subject of discussion and the fifth highest revenue source for the country, Jeshwin.
Yeah, look, so I mean, the fact that we've been on this path back and forth for years with few levies. I mean, if we look at it as an example, a country such as Botswana that actually gets their fuel piped through from South Africa charges less per liter than we do. Now, you'd think that logically should be the other way around, right? They've incurred the cost of transportation, they've incurred the cost of storage, possibly maintenance on the pipe system, additional refineries, whatever the case may be. But that's not how it's played out. And that's never how it's played out, simply because the fuel levy is continuously leveraged against those who can afford it. There is very few that are on government grants or unemployed, whatever the case may be, that are subject to a fuel levy because, very simply, they are not your primary road users. The fuel levy can then be leveraged on those who can afford it because A, they need to utilize the road transportation system, they need to utilize their vehicles, and B, most likely if you can afford your own vehicle, you can afford a slight increase in the fuel levy. Now, that's all good and well, but I mean, if you actually look at it in that way, is that not then some form of a wealth tax? It's an additional tax imposed on a resource, which in most cases is utilized specifically by those who are in a higher income bracket, not necessarily your top 1% or your top 5%, but those who are in a position where they can afford it are now subject to these additional levies and taxes.
Well, clearly it is because I mean a large chunk of the fuel price that we pay at the pump goes towards fuel levies, and I'm just looking at the numbers here: 393 per liter towards the general fuel levy, and
Mhm.
218 per liter for the road accident fund. Now we know the RAF is a bone of contention. It has been a huge subject of debate, considering what has been playing out at the RAF as well, Joshua.
Yeah, look, so the RAF has been for a while actually has been insolvent. And you know, even when it comes to processing claims, the degree of inefficiency and in I we see this in all state parastatals. There's that degree of inefficiency, and maybe it's due to a lack of training, or maybe it's due to a lack of experience by the individuals actually handling specific matters. But that then has a knock-on effect of slow delivery. I mean, when I was still in practice and we had RAF cases, RAF would take anywhere between 3 and 5 years to actually pay out. And in some instances, I recall one specific matter where there was a massive accident, and one of the claimants, in the time it took RAF to pay out, actually passed away. I can't recall if it was if it was related to his injuries sustained from the accident, but the point is he passed away. He never got to see that payout. Filling that hole for that loss of income and inability to work. He never got to see any of that. And now, even now with the RAF levy, in essence, that is just an attempt to bail out the RAF, or it's going to go very much similarly the way that ESCOM has gone, where the government bails out another state parastatal on which debt they have already secured, creating a loop and basically quite pointless, to be honest.
Yes, and also at the same time, you're talking of holes and potholes are the order of the day all over the show. And we're not only talking about potholes, we're talking about craters, that are very visible on the roads. And this is the other thing is when we are looking at paying levies, clearly the road network needs to be maintained. And this is another major problem, Jeshwin.
Yeah, look, the if we're talking about maintenance of roads and what was the last stat? Around 25 million potholes in the country. Um, yeah, if we're talking about it from perspective of maintenance, those levies, yes, they should be going to that. I mean, if you take a drive through Cape Town, you will find what maybe one pothole every 20 to 50 kilometers. Try taking the same drive in Joburg. You probably won't make it to 30th kilometer without hitting a pothole or ending up with a flat yourself from a pothole. So it's very different, and the municipality is obviously budgeting differently, and there's a very different management of funds. So, regardless of how we increase the levies, if there is that continuous mismanagement or incorrect prioritization, let's say that, incorrect prioritization of usage of funds by the municipalities or at a higher level, more regional or even national, if that poor prioritization continues and funds just keep disappearing from the coffers of the municipalities, then you're not going to have road maintenance. You're not going to have potholes fixed. You're not going to even have road signs up, nor will you have lines on your road painted. Yes, you still pay at the toll booth. You pay a thousand other levies. You have all of these additional items, e-tags, e-tolls are finally being scrapped. Thankfully, they were quite annoying. But as long as that mismanagement takes place at the top, you will see no result, no matter how high your levies go.
Yes, and also I think looking at us as South Africans now, there has been these calls over a period of time for the government to do away with fuel levies, and I think this was a disappointment that many have expressed, even when the budget was announced as well. That there was some sort of expectation, and these calls have been coming through over and over again that the government needs to relook at these fuel levies and. Uh, but it seems to be falling on deaf ears, number one, but also at the same time looking at us as South Africans, as consumers, as those that are affected by all these taxes that are being levied on us. Do we have any options, Jeshwin?
Yeah, look, I mean, aside from looking into a plan B, which is known as an immigration by investment, now that's a very separate discussion. It's a very robust discussion. But aside from looking at some sort of plan B or externalization of assets to the extent where offshore bank accounts or structures are set up and open, um, and some wealth is externalized. So, should the need arise somewhere down the line, you are at liberty to hop on a plane and just get out of here with the clothes on your back. Aside from that, I mean, you as South Africans, a tax revolt, so to speak. Commissioner Kieswetter has said that there's a possibility of a tax revolt. It's not going to get you anywhere. Neither is avoiding paying your tax or any sort of tax withholding. That is literally going to get you nowhere. It's going to result in even poorer service delivery than we already have in this country, and will yield no result besides more misery and dissatisfaction with service provision. So, no, aside from making submissions to government, and you'll see that post budget speech, there is an Annexure C doing the rounds, um, that will be out for public comment. Now, obviously, if enough comments come in that are sufficiently aligned, then we can see some sort of difference. We can angle some sort of change. I mean, your registered controlling bodies do something similar continuously throughout the year. and we sit at the tax committees, and we will review Annexure C, and we'll put together submissions for SARS and for Treasury, to actually work on these items. One of the items that we're going to be busy with is the solar panels. So instead of solar panels, it should say solar energy, because there's additional equipment needed that's actually more costly than the panels. And that's just one example off the top of my head. And that is the only way that a difference can really be made.
Exactly. I think just while you are on the subject of solar panels, and one of the issues that came out in the budget, obviously, SARS being applauded for all the additional revenue that they have been able to generate and increasing the tax base. That was one issue. But just while we are on the subject of solar panels, and there are huge question marks. I mean, for an individual, for instance, to qualify, you need to spend a minimum of 60,000 rand, because you're talking of 25%, you're looking at a 15,000 rand rebate that you would qualify. And like you mentioned, additional costs. There are costs of installation. There are just, these things don't come cheap. And to get fully off the grid could cost you anything between 200,000 and upwards as well. And this is where the debate has also gone, that was this actually just aimed at the wealthy, at those who can afford solar panels, and where does this leave the rest of the country? They're still going to be in darkness, and one of expected, possibly some sort of relief by zero rating solar panels, by looking, a lot of these are imported, reducing import duties and the like on the import of solar panels. This is where I think a larger portion of the population would have benefited, Jeshwin.
You're gonna have to repeat that. You're breaking up quite badly, and I can hear maybe every fifth word or so.
Okay, not a problem. I'm just saying, while you have been on the subject of solar panels, can you hear me clearly now?
No, same issue.
Well, I think, Jeshwan, if you can just reconnect, please, we'd appreciate it, because I think this is important. We'll try and get hold of Jeshwan very, very shortly. If he could just reconnect, and I think there is a bit of a break in communication. But again, in essence, what we are talking about is, with the South African government, the call has been to do away with all fuel levies and taxes to save South Africans from another disaster. And at this point in time, looking at what the fuel price is doing, many businesses actually will be closing their doors. I mean, those that are even using diesel generators to overcome the load shedding problems, it's costing them an arm and a leg. And this, at the end of the day, is having a ripple effect on food prices. Consumers are actually suffering at this point in time. And as we stand with food insecurity in this country, with the poverty, the levels of poverty, the men in the street cannot even afford bread and milk. And these are things that are going to get worse by the day. I see Jeshwin is on the telephone. Jeshwin, welcome back.
Thanks, Anand.
Right, Jeshwin, just the issue. So you, since you raised the issue on solar panels, I just needed your thoughts, because we're talking about this 15,000 rand rebate, which is basically 25%, which means that a person needs to spend a minimum of 60,000 rand, and not many people have the kind of money. And some of the criticisms that have been leveled against this rebate on solar panels is aimed at only those who can afford to put solar panels. And the second issue here is, if the government needed to expand this, or encouraging people to look at solar panels and solar technology, they could have looked at other ways, like for instance, zero rating the solar panels from a VAT perspective. Many of these solar panels are imported into the country, looking at import duties, and in that way they would have possibly even reached out to a larger portion of the population, rather than just restrict it to a few who possibly could afford it, and claim this rebate of 15,000 rand.
Yeah, look, so what they said is quite simply, on solar panels, specifically, and as I mentioned earlier, we will make that Annexure C submission to stipulate that it should not just be solar panels only, but it should be solar powered equipment, right? But what they've stipulated is you can claim 25% back up to 15,000. So as an example, if you spend 10,000, you can claim 2,500 Rand of it back. Now, that is a fair point because ultimately, only those who can afford it are going to go the solar route. And if you have the tax incentive or not, the point is they're still going to get the solar panels. Those individuals are not necessarily the ones that need that tax incentive or that assistance to ease up financial constraints. It's definitely the lower end of the spectrum that requires. And as things currently stand, that's not where the tax relief comes in. I mean, if you look at the old age and the disability grant, what's that cumulatively gone up by 100 Rand each? Honestly, you tell me, and honestly, what can you do with 100 Rand?
Exactly. In fact, what you're saying is very, very true. But Jashwin, obviously we'd like to engage a lot more with you, but unfortunately, time is of the essence. But for now, we thank you for taking time out and being part of our broadcast this morning, right here on News and Views. All the best to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Head of Strategic Engagement and Compliance at Tax Consulting SA, Jashwin Baijoo, with us this morning. We're going to go for a break. We come back. We'll be joined by Salam Media presenter Mariam Mia.
Sniffles and coughs to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib Black Seed. You can find Tib Black Seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
Deadly earthquakes struck Turkey and Syria, leaving communities devastated and in dire need of assistance. Over 8,000 buildings and homes were reduced to rubble. Over 9,000 people have been confirmed dead, with hundreds of thousands seriously injured. Families and communities are in disarray as search and rescue operations continue day and night. Islamic relief teams are on the ground providing vital emergency relief to the affected communities. Your support enables us to provide food, medical care, and emergency shelter. Donate now and help us save lives. Visit www.islamic-relief.org.za.
Conveniently located along the banks of the Crocodile River bordering the Kruger National Park, as a guest at Buckler's Africa Lodge, one can enjoy an amazing sunrise or sunset on our spacious deck.